One of the many letdowns in Phantom Menace, which I forgot to mention in my look back at The Phantom Menace, was the age of Anakin. I thought he should have at least been a teenager by that point. Not, what was he, 10? In that, I thought that was way too young, and it gets kind of creepy that the romance begins between Anakin and Padme at that point. I mean, it plays into Padme being a bit reluctant in this movie where the romance really begins, but still, but I thought it would have made it better had he'd already been, nearly an adult. A teenage year would fit in rather well, and of course the suggestion of a potential love triangle, more or less, with Obi-Wan being the object of Padme's desires, and she can't have him, so she turns to Anakin and this sort of thing. That kind of scenario might have made for a better motive and plot, despite what was there. But still, in all, it still could have worked with what they had, but it just didn't quite get there. But nevertheless, that was one of the letdowns, and also wanting to see a young Anakin, who's going to be Darth Vader, in action. What was so great about him, what was so powerful about him, and we really didn't get to see that. We saw him pilot the Naboo fighter and take down the Federation starships. Federation starships, not that Federation, Trade Federation starships. That, boy, sure looked like the Death Star, which I guess stands to reason since they're involved with the cabal that eventually develops Death Star technology. But anyway, so in this movie, we do get a lot of Anakin's action, and right off the bat, we see him do some amazing things. And one of the drawbacks from the prequels was that the Jedi and their lightsaber battles are just fantastic. They're spectacular. They're incredible superpowers, really. And compared to the original trilogy, it's like, wow, well, what's this? We only see a little bit of this and that with Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi when he's fighting with Darth and he leaps up to the balcony there in the throne room and all that. But that's about it. It doesn't, and compared to the prequels, it seems rather lackluster. But of course, the idea is that the Force had been rather dormant in all those years, and there wasn't a lot of demonstration of how far the power could go and this sort of thing, due to what the Sith did. The Emperor and Darth just hoarded it to themselves. Plus, they were getting old. But in the prequels, we see the full-on action, and really we get more of it in Attack of the Clones. And on quite a few lists, the people seem to think the Attack of the Clones is the worst of the three, and I don't agree with that. And some of them were upset with the romance in it, but the romance is very necessary. They got to make those babies, or the original trilogy doesn't happen. So it had to start somewhere. And here it is. Anakin has always held this torch for Padme. And it's 10 years have passed since the last movie, and boy, time jumps do help, don't they? Yes. Too bad Rian Johnson didn't think of that. Yeah. Whoops. But anyway, so there we are, and of course, one of the most interesting character of the trilogies is the Palpatine himself, and of course, with his force powers and ability to foresee events, he's manipulating this romance. He realizes this is a weakness that he can use against Anakin, and he sets it up and puts them together. He manipulates the situation, and there they are. And of course, what happened to Anakin's mother? Well, we get that answer. Boy. And all these details, and the details of what was the Clone Wars about. Well, we're going to find out. The stormtroopers, they're all clones, and they were developed and grown seemingly overnight. Well, not that fast, but pretty damn fast. And Boba Fett's daddy was the original DNA donor for all of these crack super troops that form the stormtroopers, and are actually portrayed as rather the heroes of the story. They saved the Jedi from Count Dooku and his group, and all of that. And it's an interesting turn of events there where we see them in this form. And also the interesting deal about the prequel that totally beats the sequel trilogy is design and the idea of time differentials here, where the stormtroopers wouldn't look exactly like the stormtroopers we knew. These were later designs that we saw in the original trilogy, so they're a little different. Same with the spaceships and everything. You don't have TIE fighters and X-wing fighters and all that. So a lot more detail in ship design and stuff. When you get to Force Awakens, it's nothing but silver bricks and X-wing fighters and TIE fighters, and it's just not a lot of vision there, and just rather lazy in overall design of vehicles and the look of troops and whatnot. There's only a slight tweaking to the stormtroopers in the later ones, but here, there's some real thought to it, and that this was an early stage, and even their cruisers and whatnot, they're sort of these smaller versions of what would later become the big Star Destroyers and everything. So that's all good stuff to it, and there's not a lot of deviation that's damaging to already set narratives by the original trilogy. Like I said, in the first one, with the introduction of Qui-Gon as being Obi-Wan's teacher, I thought is problematic. And he should have been like a colleague or something like that, a friend, and but instead, no, that was his master and mentor and all this stuff, and not Yoda. Well, that's problematic. Here, we don't really have a lot of details like that. We'll get to problems like that in the next one, but here, not a lot of problems here. People had problems with Hayden Christensen's acting, but he had a tough job to fulfill here. So, he's a whiny teenager. Well, yeah, he would be. That's more given to the credibility of the type of person who could become Darth Vader, that would become so frustrated and anguished that could be seduced by the dark side. But I just don't think they conveyed it enough for the ultimate fall of Anakin there. It's there, the elements are there, but not nearly enough. But as far as the romance goes, at moments it's cheesy and whatnot, but it's credible, it works for it, and also it kind of makes Padme's a bit of a tease here. She goes, no, we shouldn't do this, and the next minute she's in these sexy outfits. Just sitting there and, gee, Anakin, I don't think we should. And then after they come to the decision, he's like, well, okay, we can't do it. It would be wrong, and we just got to try to move on and forget about it. And then she turns around later and says, you know what? I love you. I just deeply love you. Now, granted, she thinks they're both about to die, and she didn't want him going to his death not knowing that she, felt the same way and all that. So, but anyway, the romance is, of course, absolutely necessary, and any criticisms of it, I guess, could only be in the presentation, that didn't think Hayden acted well enough or what have you. But I thought he was all right. I didn't, he didn't wow me or anything, but I the massive hatred that the guy would get from time to time, I thought was overblown. It's hard to see him becoming Darth Vader, primarily because of how Darth Vader speaks. Not the robot voice, the James Earl Jones voice, but the Shakespearean type language that he seems to deliver. You don't see any of that here. There's an attempt at it in the third and final film, but it's a bit hard to get there. But at the same time, he's a young, teenaged Anakin, and he's frustrated with the rules and being told he's not good enough and he's not disciplined enough, which he isn't, and all of that sort of stuff. But we do see what I think is the quintessential birth of Darth Vader, and that is at the death of Anakin's mother. He goes and he finds her. She's since been freed from slavery and married into the family, which we now understand why Luke Skywalker is considered a member of that family. It's because Owen's father is the man who married Shmi Skywalker. And unfortunately, she got kidnapped by the Tusken Raiders, and they tortured her to near death, and then she finally dies right at the moment that Anakin does find her and he can't save her. And oh boy, well, he's mourning her death, and he bows his head, and then his head lifts, and that's Darth Vader. He's filled with fury and rage and absolute passion, which of course is the path to the dark side. And so he slaughters the entire tribe of Tusken Raiders, and he's later horrified by it, and he confesses this to Padme. And he says, "No, I can be better, but and then he's at the same time wishing for more power and absolute power, omnipotence, really. And well, Padme figures, you know what, I can change him." So there they are. Boy, well, what a messed up romance, but what are you gonna do? Love. You don't think straight when you're in love, and this is no different. And so there you go. Now, once again, way too dependent on CGI, and there's a lot of really glaring CGI mistakes in there. Some of the proportions don't exactly match up in the Emperor Palpatine's office. And then there's the scenes where Padme and Anakin go to rescue Obi-Wan, and you can see where the door doesn't quite, they kind of go through it. And anyway, there's plenty of videos out there that will detail the mistakes and whatnot, and it's kind of rather shocking, that it would be that bad. But anyway, and when you're paying attention to the movie and the action, you don't notice it as much. But, well, the years haven't been kind to it on that respect. We do get some great stuff with Obi-Wan Kenobi and his battle with Jango Fett, and they basically rip off the asteroid fight with the Millennium Falcon and the TIE Fighters and Empire Strikes Back, with some more spectacular technology and whatnot. And then even Obi-Wan steals the idea of hiding to escape the fate and all that, and using trash to disguise his escape. The whole thing. But it works out for what it is. And Count Dooku, of course, bringing in Christopher Lee was a nice touch, and I really wish he had been involved in the first one as a Jedi, and that the death of Qui-Gon as his apprentice or Padawan would have pushed him out of the Jedi to where we see him. Oh, he's turned to the dark side, And this might have been his first experience with a Sith, Lord here with Darth Maul, and he's just, he's never experienced this before, and something like that might have been an interesting narrative for him. But here he is, and of course Christopher Lee is a dominating character, actor, and of course probably brought in because Peter Cushing had been a part of the original movie, and then Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing did all those Hammer movies, and they were quite the team there. So it was a nice a spot for him to be in there. It's kind of hard to see him being the servant, though. You think he would be the Dark Lord, but that's the situation. And of course, I know that there was the cartoons and the novels and whatnot explored that more, but not going to discuss that here. Just sticking to the films. So, all in all, Attack of the Clones just does not bother me as much. Even with Jar Jar in there, but the way they handled Jar Jar in this one was the way he should have been handled all along. He has his moments, and he's a pivotal character in there. And that for whatever reason, Padme, boy, she's brilliant and wise. And is she? her boyfriend's a psycho, and she leaves this idiot in charge on the most serious vote of her senatorial career. She gives all her senatorial powers to Jar Jar Binks, and so, boy, how hard would it be for those corrupt politicians to manipulate that guy into creating a fascist army? Not hard at all. So, but nevertheless, he was fine in this one. So, yes, there's flaws and whatnot, but not bad. And I still hold that Phantom Menace was the worst of the three. So that leaves us one more. Yes, in my opinion, I don't know, since beating around the bush is the best of the trilogy, of the prequel trilogy, and we'll get to that in the next video. Now, I said I wouldn't discuss cartoons and novels and all that, but they did do this series called Clone Wars. They were like, I believe, only like 2-minute long episodes, and I believe they put them all together. It was originally broadcast on MTV at the time. I can't remember. They're fantastic. I mean, they're better than the films, and it fills in this storyline in between Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, and it really ends right where Revenge of the Sith begins. So, to me, I think they should have continued on in that vein of those cartoons, you know. But well, they didn't. They were fascinated with computer animation and all that, and kind of making it more childlike. But yeah, I really enjoyed that series. That was some pretty fantastic stuff. So if you haven't seen it, do check it out. It does link the two movies. It gives you probably the best story out of this sequel trilogy. It's just not in the films. But anyway, there you go. Attack of the Clones. And we'll do it again with Revenge of the Sith soon. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Bye-bye.